come and share their time with us today. Ace and Alice Hiromura are two residents here in Vancouver, but in 1942, they and their families were included in the over 120,000 Japanese Americans and Japanese nationals who were sent to concentration camps here in the United States as a result of the U.S. entry into World War II. Many of you who have read Pharaoh to Manzanar, can you raise your hands in class, right? So you're aware of one person's family's experience at Manzanar, which is only one of the camps. And those who are in history class who've learned about Japanese American internment, can you raise your hand, my juniors? Right. Okay, so we're coming in with some background knowledge, certainly. So our speakers don't have to explain the entire history of Japanese American internment, but we're very fortunate they're able to share their experiences about this. So Alice, Mrs. Hiromura, went in as a 21-year-old, I believe. And Ace was a little bit younger, and he ended up joining the 442nd Combat Regiment team and fought in Europe during World War II. So they'll be able to share both those experiences with you. They have the questions from my classes here, and I think our plan is for them to tell you a little bit about themselves and their individual experiences, and then try to answer as many questions as possible. So we'll open it up to questions, and then if we need to, we'll refer to the papers that are in front of us. But can you please help me right now in welcoming Mr. and Mrs. Hiromura.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? My name is Alice Hiromura, and I am a survivor of World War II. I'm 92 years old, and I was living in Vallejo, California when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. And I was just as shocked and amazed and all the rest of you, because I was born and raised in an entirely Caucasian community. There were very few Japanese in Vallejo. And my father had been in the U.S. Navy, and so he brought us up and he said, this is your country, you are Americans, and we never thought of any loyalty to Japan. It was a country where my mother and father came from, but we didn't have any connection with it, and we were strictly Americanized. And when Pearl Harbor came along and all the Japanese were told that they had to get out of the West Coast, I called up one of my girlfriends in high school and I said, well, Eunice, I guess this is goodbye. And she said, what for? And I said, well, you know, they're kicking out all the Japanese and Japanese Americans from the West Coast, and they're going to put us into a camp. And she said, well, why are you going? And I said, well, you know, my father and mother Japanese, and we're American born, but we're Japanese descent. I said, well, what did you think we were? What did you think I was? She said, you know, that's funny. She said, I never thought of it. She said, I was Eunice, you were Alice, and we were friends, and I never thought about what you were or what your background was. And I said, well, Eunice, if everybody thought like you, we probably wouldn't have any wars. You're Alice, or you're Joan, or you're Fred, and that's all it should be. You shouldn't think about race or culture or anything like that. You're friends. So I think that at that time I learned something from her inadvertently. She said the right thing, and I always use it when I talk to people. So, and when you think about it, it is something that it's I'm me and you're you, and what else counts? You know. So today I think that maybe we have some questions here that would you like to have answered one piece, or do you want to ask questions?
Maybe students could raise their hands. Maybe that would be...
The one with the circle is me when I was 20 years old. That's my whole family. My father is in the car. My mother is a little bit hidden. That's my older sister, my brother Jack, my brother Charlie, my youngest sister Margie, my two younger sisters, Amy, Betty, and my younger brother, Tom. Right now, there is only Tom, who lives in Las Vegas, myself, and my next sister who lives in Providence, Rhode Island. There's just 3 of us left, a family of 8 children. And let's see, would you like to ask questions, or do you want me to just check some of these and see what?
I'm sure we have some questions out here. Perhaps I can circulate with a microphone and we can answer some questions. Anyone have a question right now for Mr. and Mrs. Hiromura? Or we could refer to the paper. It's a little microphone shy right now.
Were you happy when you got out of camp? Well, naturally I was happy, but I was a little bit, afraid of what the future held. But it says, what were your experiences like in the camp? Do you have any friends you met in the camp? Did you and your husband meet at the camp, and how old were you at the camp? Well, my husband and I met in New York much later. And my experience in camp was very interesting because for the first time I was subject to many Japanese, having lived in a, say, Americanized community where there were only about 27 Japanese in a city of 19,000 population. So we didn't know too much about Japanese or Japan or anything. And my father always said, this is your country, this is, you're United States citizens, so don't do anything to make your country ashamed of you. He was very proud to have served in the U.S. Navy, although he did not get a citizenship.
Alice, could you maybe explain which camp you were at?
Well, being that we were in California, we were sent to Tanforan Racetrack, which is near San Francisco. It's now called the Tanforan Shopping Center, I think. And it's quite an experience. We were sent to this camp. There were barbed wires around, guards, and we thought, what are we doing here? I mean, here we were just like teenagers and old people, and the guards were there with their machine guns, and they'd get back there, don't go too close, too close to the gate and everything. But other than that, when I first went to camp, I said, I didn't ask to be put in here, so I'm going to make the best of it. So right from the beginning, I had this attitude that I did nothing wrong. I'm put in here, it's politics, different, prejudice, whatever you call it. But by reacting and agitating, it wasn't going to help me. So I told my sisters and brothers, make the best of things, behave yourself, make yourself be a credit to the family, not a detriment. And don't give people a reason to say, now look at, they were put into camps because they're sloppy or dirty or pro-Japan or anything. And so I said, be something that you could be proud of, and don't do anything that they can say, you see why we put them in camp. Because there really wasn't any reason for them to put us in camp except for our background. And if you look around, I can't see now, everybody seems to be a mixed group now. If there was a war, how would you segregate anybody? And I think it was politics, it was the Farmers Association of the West Coast that wanted the good lands that the Japanese bought very cheaply and tilled and worked hard and made into good agricultural lands. So they coveted that, and they wanted to get rid of the Japanese so they could buy the land cheap. And there was a propaganda about why were the Japanese so close to the airport? Well, Ace's sister-in-law said when we first, started, my dad bought some land. He had to buy this terrible land way out in the boondocks because it wasn't, all the good land was taken by the so-called American farmers. So the Japanese bought the land cheap, and they worked day and night. They made it into